called Bola A. Tinubu was admitted in Chicago State University in 1977. Now, with respect to whether or not Chicago State University issued a diploma to such a student in 1977, the registrar said no.
That's what he said?
Yes, that's exactly what he said. Because when Atiku's lawyers drew his attention that have you ever seen a copy of this certificate that Tinubu presented to INEC in Nigeria as a qualifying certificate to contest election, his answer was, I have only seen this certificate in the course of the proceedings in Nigeria. It is not on our records in Chicago State University. And we cannot certify that we issued this certificate. And that is true. Because if you look at the documents released to Atiku, particularly document 0026, it speaks volumes as to whether or not that said Bola A. Tinubu actually graduated from Chicago State University. And why do I say so? Because the document says the student failed English and is required to go back and sit for English 222. And there is no further record to show that Bola A. Tinubu went back to sit for that particular course, which was a requirement, a condition precedent for admission into Chicago State University. Mind you, the Bola A. Tinubu, who in one instance is female, in another instance is male, what was presented as the qualifying certificate for admission into Chicago State University was a GCE certificate purportedly obtained from Government College in 1970. And Government College Lagos, which is supposed to be the issuer of that same certificate, was not in existence up until 1974. And if you look at the subjects that are contained on the GCE certificate, it was physics, chemistry, and biology. There was no mathematics, and there was no English. And the requirements for you to graduate from Chicago State University is that you must have a credit in English and in mathematics. So if you look at the deposition documents, particularly document 0017, document 0026, document 0027, document 0028, document 0029, and document 0032. They speak volume about the said Bola A. Tinubu, who was supposed to have been a student of Chicago State University, but who never qualified to be issued a certificate because he never graduated from the university. It is possible for a student to go to a school because education is a process. Now, you get admitted, you undertake lectures, you write exams, you do for higher education, you do something like maybe a long essay or a project or a thesis or a dissertation. Upon the completion of all of this, if you have passed every subject, then you're issued with a certificate evidencing the fact that you were a graduate of this university.
Do they issue certificates? Or because what I learned is that the certificate is always issued once. And
no,
whatever you ask for,
upon graduation,
but
you
when
are issued with a certificate. Now, in 1979, no certificate was issued
at
to
that
any
time.
Bola A. Tinubu.
No certificate.
That's what the registrar says. That's what they said. No certificate was issued. And if you look at the type of certificate...
Sorry, please, let me ask this. The registrar admitted that Bola Ahmed Tinubu attended the school.
Attendance is one thing. Graduating from the school and earning a certificate is another different thing altogether. Education through the university or through that is a process. It's not an event. You can be admitted to ABU Zaria today for a 4-year program course. You can do up to the 3rd year. You can do even up to the 4th year. Now, if you have carryovers, you are required to go back and remedy those carryovers. Now, in this case, it was not even carryover per se within the university. There were deficiencies in the entry qualification which were detected by the Chicago State University, which the student Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whoever he was or she was directed to go back. If you look at that deposition document 0026, if you want, I can read exactly what document 0026 said. And I'll put it to say, you have not passed the English qualifying exam, and the credits that you have previously earned in composition will not be recorded on your transcript until you have passed the examination. You should enroll in English 222. A passing score on English qualifying examination has been required prior to admission into any major or professional program for students admitted into the university as of September 1975. That particular precondition, precedent, was not fulfilled by that candidate. So no certificate was issued. And that's exactly what the registrar said. So any correlation, any interpretation that is different from what is on the records of the proceedings in the Chicago court is not what is available on record that to be used as evidence in court. So that's the correct interpretation. That certificate wasn't issued. And if you look at, there are several other errors on the certificate, which I need not point out. These things have been in the public domain. But this particular one, it's important that this point is made, because it is not even the attendance of the university that article is before the presidential election petition, or was before the presidential election petition tribunal, or is appealing to the Supreme Court. Atiku is appealing to the Supreme Court on the basis of the provisions of Section 137, subsection 1J, and Section 134, subsection 1 of the Electoral Act. The earlier reference refers to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which says that no candidate shall be qualified to contest for election as a president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria if such a candidate has presented a forged certificate to the Independent National Electoral Commission. So it is not a question of attendance. Granted, Bola Ahmed Tinubu attended Chicago State University. The question is the certificate that Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria today, as it is, presented to INEC to contest for the 2023 general election, was it a valid certificate issued by the Chicago State University? The registrar has said no. We are not aware. So
where are the information that we are getting that the registrar gave it a pass, that what Bola Ahmed Tinubu submitted to INEC is actually coming from their school?
Ijoma, the depositions in court in Chicago are available everywhere. These documents have been certified. They have been published. And so any other interpretation that is skewed to make a misrepresentation to the public, it's simply because the public itself is not paying attention and
it's the truth. Nigerians don't make
reading exactly what the documents are. I refer you to this day this morning. This morning's headline was bold, that Chicago State University registrar denies knowledge of the certificate Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, presented to INEC. So there is no confusion at all. In law, we say res ipsa loquitur. The facts are on the face of the document, and the facts speaks for themselves.
Okay, let's go back to that section 137 that you said. They are qualifications for you to run as a president.
Yes.
And if you go to section subsection 1A, it says subject to the provisions of 28 of this constitution, he has voluntarily acquired the citizen of a country, which is one of the qualifications.
Yes.
And except in such cases as may be prescribed by the National Assembly, he has made a declaration of allegiance to such other countries. That's a different matter.
Those are different issues.
This has to do with the issue of the certificate now.
The issue of the certificate, read section 137, subsection 1J. It's there.
Hold on.
You have a copy of the Constitution.
Yes, that's where... why I'm going to that is simple. If what section 1J has said, presented a forged certificate to the Independent National Electoral Commission.
Exactly.
That is one reason that he may be disqualified.
Yes.
And that's what some persons are calling for, his disqualification.
Strict liability offense.
Okay. But that was not part of what you asked for at the tribunal. With the Supreme Court...
That's a fallacy.
With the Supreme Court now go ahead and and say, okay, let us add it to what you are asking for.
No, that's a fallacy. That's a fallacy. The Atiku petition was anchored on 4 grounds. And the first ground of petition, was that Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, was not qualified to contest the election for the office of President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, for not having the minimum qualification and for presenting a forged certificate. Now, when the tribunal proceedings were on, the ruling of the court, because the candidate, the witness that was brought in by the PDP and Atiku Abubakar, one lawyer Mba, was disqualified. But the APC on their own tendered from the bar this same certificate that they presented to INEC, thereby putting the matter squarely in issue before the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. So now we are going on appeal to bring further evidence to show that what they presented as a qualifying certificate in reply to our petition, when we filed it, is a forged document. And I've heard this argument.
Okay.
I've heard this argument. Oh, that the Supreme Court will not admit new evidence.
That is it.
That is the general rule. That's the general rule. But the principle in law is that for every legal rule, there is an exception. And what is the exception in this case? Ijoma, a combined reading of Section 22 and Section 33 of the Supreme Court Act of 1985 and Order 2, Rule 12, Paragraph 1 of the Supreme Court rules clearly gives the Supreme Court the discretion to admit of new evidence. And the Evidence Act in Section 122, subsection 4, and Section 124 gives the Supreme Court the powers to even suo motu on its own, take judicial notice of such notorious evidence that is already in the public domain.
So what
but beyond that,
the Supreme Court
people are asking, has the Supreme Court ever done anything like this? Yes.
When?
In the case of Ohinlawo versus OK, 2008, 16 Nigeria Weekly Law Report, part 1113, at page 357, particularly at page 383 to 384. Walter Noggen, as he then was, as CJN as he then was, laid out the criteria and the principle and adumbrated completely the provisions of Section 22 and 33 of the Supreme Court Act and Order 2, Rule 12, Paragraph 1 of the Supreme Court rules, that anybody who is a litigant to a particular proceeding at a lower court who wishes to introduce a new evidence must first seek the leave of the Supreme Court. And once that leave is obtained, the person will bring the evidence. If that evidence was not available at the time of the determination of the matter during trial, or if that evidence is not crucial, not even just crucial, but important for the resolution of the matter. So the Supreme Court is backed up by statutory provisions in the Supreme Court Act, in the Evidence Act, and in the court rules. And then there's a case law determined by no less a person, by the Chief Justice of Nigeria in 2008. That's why I have provided citation, and I will urge lawyers who are outside, who are listening to me, to check out that particular case, Ohinlawo versus OK, 2008, 16 Nigeria Weekly Law Report.
Okay. Barrister, you see, they call that the court should disqualify President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. some persons are saying that the certificate that is with Atiku Abubakar is not the right certificate. You talked about the different...
Which certificate with Atiku
the
Abubakar?
CSU certificate that he obtained.
Yes.
So there have been questions, where did he get that certificate from? Was it a forged one? Because it is looking like 3 different certificates out there. And you also talked about certificate having different marks.
Yes.
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 So which one is the right certificate?
See, Chicago State University produced different samples of certificates.
Okay.
The ones that were issued to students of the university in the 70s. And if you look at the university certificate, the logo of Chicago State University is 2 hands clocked together, encircled. The one presented by Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a triangle. And that certificate, that type of certificate, was not issued to any student in Chicago State University in the 70s, in the 80s, up till until 1998. And Tinubu graduated from Chicago State University in 1979. Oh, granted, he said he lost the certificate. Let's give him that. But he went back to apply and sent one Oluwole, one lawyer Oluwole, who apparently didn't go back to Chicago State University, went to another Oluwole to produce an Oluwole certificate for him. Because there's nothing on the record.
This same Oluwole is what they are saying, that the certificate that they are...
is Oluwole.
The PDP is parading.
Yeah.
It's not the genuine certificate.
The PDP is not parading any certificate. The certificate that the PDP has now is the certificate that has been released to us by the Chicago State University.
And if
in determining this matter, we had called Mba, who had prior to now obtained a certified true copy of a certificate from Chicago State University, purportedly signed by one all, who the registrar says he cannot say whether or not he's still within the employment of the university at this moment. So when we sought for Mba to tender that particular certificate, the Court of Appeal disallowed us. So we have no certificate. Yet, when the PDP lawyers now presented the Oluwole certificate that is before INEC, was presented to INEC, the court admitted it. So they made the matter become even more relevant in issue.
Okay.
So what we did was to, okay, fine, the court has disallowed us to prove this matter. The matter is pleaded. That's what I want you to understand, it's pleaded. And that's why the APC went ahead to defend it by bringing a counter to the PDP position, by introducing this certificate, this Oluwole certificate that was presented to INEC, making the matter squarely in issue before the Court of Appeal. So in the Court of Appeal now disallowed Mba as an incompetent witness, and so did not admit that certificate which Mba had prior to the proceedings obtained in his own criminal proceedings before another court. So Atiku now decided to go to the US and obtain a subpoena from the US court to also be issued with Tinubu's certificate, so that he will have the certificate to be presented to the Supreme Court. Because the rules allow the Supreme Court, in the quest to do substantial justice, not technical justice.
Okay, but if Atiku went to the US to get a certificate,
yes,
and you just told us that the certificate cannot be issued twice, they can also give... How did he get that certificate?
Atiku has gotten sample certificates of Chicago State University. Atiku has not been able to, because Chicago State University refused to issue any certificate bearing Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that they do not have it on their record.
All right.
That's why
so how did he get that certificate? Yes.
The deposition of the registrar is that we do not have on our records a certificate for Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We didn't issue that certificate. We are becoming aware of that certificate only now because of the proceedings in Nigeria.
So which of what was given to Atiku Abubakar, was it not a certificate?
What was given to Atiku Abubakar are records with respect to candidate Bola A. Tinubu within the archives of Chicago State University.
Not a certificate.
Those documents do not carry any certificate bearing Bola Ahmed Tinubu, even the certificates that are given to Atiku for privacy reasons are redacted. They are just samples of certificates issued by Chicago State University.
Okay.
So we can make a comparison. If you say you graduated from Chicago State University, the Chicago State University issued you a certificate in 1979. If Ijoma was your classmate, Ijoma too will have a similar certificate. And all the certificates issued to us to evidence 1979, complete in the entire 70s, none comes close in any semblance to what Bola Ahmed Tinubu presented to INEC. So we are saying that the Chicago State University, and it's evident on the face of the depositions and the documents, from 001 to 0032, that nothing, apart from record of admission, even the admission, like I said, the foundation for admission is faulty. The person whose records were used to admit a Bola A. Tinubu in Chicago State University were records of a female student. It's clear on the record. It's clear on the record.
But that female that is written on top of that certificate that you're talking about may just be an error.
Ijoma.
It may just be an error.
Ijoma,
it happens to a lot
sister.
of persons.
Ijoma, my sister. If there is a consistent pattern of errors on one particular person, every document you bring from age, there are 3 different age. 1, 29 March 1952. 2, 29 March 1954. 29 March 1955. Age, mistakes. Sex, multiple mistakes. Social security number, multiple. See, Ijoma, it cannot just be a coincidence that on one particular person, several mistakes or errors are made on his documents. Because the truth of the matter is that when you tell one original lie, Ijoma, you have to manufacture 10 different more lies, or even 1 million more lies going forward to be able to explain the first lie. Because the foundation, once the foundation or the premise is not correct, the conclusion can never be valid.
Okay, I'll come back to you. You know, we told you that we also have a lawyer joining us from Lagos.